Hey guys, and welcome to another Saturday Mega Wellness. I'm Dell with the Mega Sports. We are happy to have you. I want to quickly give a shout out and a welcome to our guest today, Dr. Brian Waterman, orthopedic surgeon from Wake Forest Baptist Health. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we've been excited to have you on. We've had a lot of questions. We've asked folks to send in their questions, and later in the show, we're going to have you for our Wellness Ask Me Anything session. So I know you're excited. You've seen some of the questions.
Yeah, I'm ready to serve as able.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're streaming from Winston-Salem today.
That's right. That's right. I'm from the my home office here, as many of us have gotten to know quite well over the past several months.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Dr. Waterman, you're an orthopedic surgeon. For the folks that are out there watching, either they don't know what that is or they may assume what it is. Can you help us understand kind of what your role is there at Wake Forest Baptist Health?
Yeah. No, again, thanks again for having us. I'm an orthopedic surgeon at baseline level. That's a bone doctor, and then there are several subspecialties within that. And so I'm an orthopedic sports medicine provider. A lot of folks have intersected with that over time, either through a weekend warrior type of activity or more formal team involvement. And so really, we're treating athletes across the spectrum and trying to nurse them back to health in a variety of different ways. Within that, I focus primarily on knee, shoulder, and elbow conditions. And I do that through three of our locations around the Triad through Wake Forest Baptist Health. Um, I also am the chief and fellowship director of sports medicine. And so that gives me an educational hat to wear too, as it relates to residents and fellows, folks in training.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we drill down on kind of, your whole breadth of experience here. So you obviously you got into orthopedics or got into sports medicine as an athlete. You were a soccer player, collegiate soccer player, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I played at Elon. I actually grew up for a portion of my time as a military brat in DC area, and so really got pretty entrenched in competitive soccer, and then played a year at Elon. Ended up transferring and doing some club soccer at University of Virginia. But small world. My former Elon coach is now involved with the Twins organization here locally, and so we were able to connect after 15 plus years later. So kind of fun to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We've got Adam already in our chat saying good morning, Dr. Waterman, or saying Dr. Waterman is the best. I don't want to skip out on the shout outs you got there. And then, of course, again, back to your experience. So you've spent some time in the military. You've got a lot of honors that you received in the military in medicine. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think if you keep showing up and just delivering good care, that people will acknowledge you. My father was in the military, and certainly that was a great way to play for medical school, which is no small feat these days. And so I spent about 10 years in the military out in West Texas, working in El Paso. And so that was a great community. Deployed to Afghanistan, and just have had a couple acknowledgments along the way. I consider that a real honor to have served, really, because you're taking care of the people that are taking care of you, and so I consider that a highlight for my career.
Yeah, and when it comes to sports, I think it's really important for folks to understand that Wake Forest Baptist Health is really bringing in the best of the best. I mean, you've spent some time with some major teams. I'm going to just throw out a word, and you tell me all the teams you worked with. Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. So Chicago was a fantastic experience. Training at one of the premier organizations in Rush University in Midwest Orthopedics. It was really a very dynamic environment. Worked with Chicago White Sox, and I continue to be involved with that as their team physician here with the Winston-Salem Dash. Working with the Chicago Bulls, one of the many storied organizations that were a part of my youth growing up. And
Absolutely.
many people have seen the most recent TV show and series on that. Working with the Chicago Fire, I know we have some soccer enthusiasts here, and so being able to take care of them, as well as a variety of other organizations, including Junior League Hockey, Roller Derby, the ballet. I mean, this is a very diverse swath, and I think Chicago offered me a unique environment to do it.
Yeah, and then of course here in the Triad with Wake Forest Baptist Health, you're a team doctor for, or you're on the team of specialists for Wake Forest University, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Myself and my partners are part of a group network that help take care of several different colleges, university, and then county schools. And we serve over 35 teams, one of which is Wake Forest University. And so we provide athletic care. Two of my partners, John Hubbard and Chris Miles, are the medical directors or co-directors for Wake Forest University. One of my other partners, Kevin Coates, is involved with the care of Winston-Salem State University. And so specifically as it relates to me, I take care of Wake Forest baseball and then men's and women's soccer primarily. So that offers me kind of a unique opportunity to get to know these very high demand athletes that have traditionally been very high performers in their sport. And both coaching staffs have a high track record of producing athletes for the next level professionally.
Yeah. So why do you like working at Wake Forest Baptist Health?
It allows you to really diversify and have your hands involved in a lot of different areas. We've talked a little bit about the clinical care of athletes, and I really enjoy that. But being able to provide team coverage in the collegiate setting, having graduated from an ACC school, it's great to be able to be involved with that rivalry and tap into a local network. To be able to even to drill it down to a high school level and be involved with those individuals in your community, I think is hugely valuable. But then also being able to be engaged in education. So you're teaching future orthopedic surgeons how to develop their craft and take care of patients while also doing research. And we just have an amazing breadth of resources readily available to us, both through the Baptist Health hospital system and Wake Forest University.
Yeah, I'm going to read out some stats. So I know you got 35 youth, high school, and collegiate and professional teams that team really oversees. And then, of course, when you talk about Wake Forest Baptist Health, you guys have 25 locations throughout the area. So, you guys are definitely doing some great things. I heard you say in-demand athletes. You guys have definitely created yourself an in-demand service line there over at Wake Forest Baptist.
Yeah, it's nice, and really it's a team sport. Sports medicine has always been a team sport, not just the people we take care of. So we're really trying to put together a network of folks that can provide comprehensive care irrespective of whatever problem you have. And our goal in charge is to try to resolve your problem at the lowest level, often with non-surgical or conservative care. And we work very closely with our physical therapists, with our primary care sports medicine providers, and our flagship location is at Sports Medicine Stratford in Winston-Salem. But we really have tentacles to all the different locations in your local community. So we encourage folks that if they have a need, we're more than happy to see them and evaluate them and see what's appropriate for their treatment.
Yeah, and I definitely want to point out when it comes to Wake Forest Baptist Health, you guys are same day, next day appointments. If folks just simply call, I know earlier on we had the phone number up, but it's 336-716-WAKE. So we want to make sure that we let people know if they are dealing with an injury or an ache and pain, that they know that they need to start seeking out some help. I know we've had colleagues of yours on the show as well, Dr. Lucy, Dr. Gangopadhyay, all talking about, if you're dealing with pain, it's better to go ahead and start asking the right questions, finding the right solutions before it gets to the point where you are now in desperate need of surgery.
Yeah, especially in these times, you and I have spoken about how a lot of us have injuries or problems that have been percolating for a while, but me as well as members of our community probably put things on the back burner too long sometimes, and there can be simple, straightforward fixes for this. You're right, we do have, thanks for plugging that, the extended care clinics that we have actually have it from 5 to 7 every day so that we can get more urgent, or maybe those folks that don't have time during their normal business day and can't get out. as well. At our location, we have a Saturday morning clinic that's generally pretty popular during football season, when we see a lot of injuries in that Friday night lights. A lot of that's been disrupted in this current pandemic, but it's also been a great opportunity for, again, those working families that really don't have the bandwidth to get out during the week, when they're navigating homeschooling, sports, their day-to-day lives, and trying to keep the wheels on the bus.
Yeah, and I know that both Dr. Lucy, Dr. Gankopadai, and yourself, I'm sure, because I'm one of those folks that are guilty of it, come pandemic, we start thinking we're triathletes. We just want to get out of the house and start doing all these different activities, and perhaps we're not as geared up properly as we need to, which is where, of course, a neighborhood sports store like Omega Sports wants to be there to help. But more importantly, just reminding people that if you're going to start taking on a lot of new activities, just make sure that you're not pushing your body to the brink. Make sure that you kind of go in step. I know that you guys are probably seeing a lot more injury from perhaps even different folks than you normally would see.
Yeah, I think you're right. We need to employ what we call periodization, which is you need to really ramp up and design a plan. Very often people want to get where they're going a little too fast, myself included. I had a pandemic shoulder injury that I'm still nursing, and so that's something that, when given the time and the opportunity, I think a lot of us have availed ourselves of the exercise and health-related activities that we probably have neglected for a long period of time. But designing a plan, using the rich resources we have through the web, also I think engaging in some of our mega sports colleagues and our strength and conditioning resources to design a program that will allow you to get fit safely. That's probably the biggest goal.
Yep. Well, we're going to have you on the show a little later because we do have viewers that send in some questions. And I want to just preference this by saying, I know there are certain areas of the body that you focus in on, and we have a gamut of questions that are kind of head to toe. So I appreciate you taking a look at those questions. And we're going to be back with you later in the show to talk about that. But I want to remind folks, if you're looking for information on Dr. Waterman, or if you're looking for information on Wake Forest Baptist Health's information, the website is wakehealth.edu/sports medicine. I know we've got a shorter URL just so it doesn't go across the whole screen. So if you just go to sportsmed or sportmed.omegasports, that'll take you right where you need to go. You guys have a lot of great information. I know Omega Sports has pulled a lot of great information, especially when it came to COVID. You guys have stayed on the forefront of that, keeping people safe, keeping our neighbors safe. So we've definitely seen you guys as a great resource. And then, of course, speaking of team sports, we're going to later in the show have our team sports buyer, Mark Caudle, talk about the fact that we want to continue to keep inviting our families into our stores, and we want to make sure that they're safe. So we'll have that segment coming up as well. But Dr. Waterman, if you can just hang out for a little bit, we're going to go through Omega News. I've got some Insta faves I want to share, and then we're going to have you back for the Ask Me Anything with Wake Forest Baptist Health.
Looking forward to the Q&A. Thanks.
All right. We'll see you in a second. All right. Well, I want to thank Dr. Waterman. We're going to have him back. And now we need to jump into Omega News, because as you guys are watching, I just want to remind you that we are open this weekend. It is Labor Day weekend. I hope you guys have some great plans for the weekend, whether you're going to take it easy like I am, or if you're going to go out and just be with a bunch of friends safely, where you can go to their houses and do a safe little barbecue, whatever it is. Just know that Omega Sports is open. We are going to be here celebrating all weekend long. And the big news is, with Labor Day, everyone's got some great deals, but Omega Sports has a 25% off deal all Labor Day weekend. So up until Monday, you can take 25% off. And when I say 25% off, just know that includes sales and clearance. So we may have something that you've been waiting to buy that's already on sale that you're going to be able to take another 25% off. So definitely make sure you check out your email today. We've been of course, in our stores. So we need to make sure that if you're in the stores, just ask your Active Play experts on what is included in the sale, and you'll see we have a lot included. So I definitely want to encourage you guys to go out to our Labor Day sale in our neighborhood sports store. I do want to go ahead with our mega news. We talked about team sports, and I want to bring in our team sports buyer, Mark Caudle, who's also our regional leader in the Triad area, to talk about team sports, what Omega is doing to keep families safe, and to kind of welcome you back as things are starting to get back into that 2.5 phase, and sports are starting to ramp up. So let's go ahead and bring in Mark Caudle. All right, guys. Well, we are here this morning with our regional leader, Mark Caudle. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Del. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you're wearing glasses. So this is going to be a really important, intelligent conversation we're going to have for the first time.
Always.
Always. Well, Mark, I said you're a regional market leader. Obviously, you run our Triad market, but more importantly to Omega Sports, you are our sports buyer, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what does that entail?
A little bit of everything from soccer, baseball, tennis, a little bit of pickleball lately is on fire. All the team sports, basically.
Yeah, so at Omega Sports, we talk a lot about running, but I think it's really important to remind people that for generations and generations in North Carolina, we've serviced families with active sports needs, whether it's soccer or baseball or really kind of any of those sports.
Yeah, for 43 years, we've been known as the place to go in North Carolina. So we kind of hang our hat on that. We're proud of that. Our customer service has been top notch. We like to think for 43 years, and we hope to stay around for another 43 years.
Yeah, speaking of 43, you've been with Omega for what, most of that time frame, right?
Yeah, 20. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, you started in the stores, and then of course now you are our regional leader, and then more importantly our buyer. And when you're buying for our customers, I think it's important to recognize that you're trying to get the best products for our customers at affordable prices.
Sure, like to keep everyone in mind, trying to hit a little bit of every price point. Like to keep every consumer in mind and try to make everyone happy. It's not always easy, but that's what we try to do.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing some great things. I know over the last several months, as maybe team sports have been placed on hold, really sports in general have been placed on hold, you've had some success. I mean, both online with megasports.com, but then more importantly in our stores, we've seen folks show up and really continue to stay geared up and trained up with some of the essentials that we have maybe in soccer and in baseball.
Certainly it's been a challenge without team sports. And like you said, we've seen growth in tennis and individual sports such as pickleball. But with phase 2.5 on its way back, and baseball and soccer coming back in the near future, and it's already started in some markets, we hope to see the team sports grow and get back to normal.
Yeah, so again, we're experts in active play, active sports, and of course in running, but I have to say, when I'm in those stores, I love seeing families shopping in the soccer department because that's really a family effort. It's dad and mom, or maybe one or the other in the store with their child, just trying on new things. And it's important that even if you're buying for your kid, that you have expertise in fitting. So trying on those cleats and making sure that your child is properly fitted is very important.
Sure, we have all your needs from head to toe for soccer, baseball. I shopped here as a child, and it's pretty neat being able to buy what we carry now. So we have the whole gamut. So whatever you need, soccer or baseball, whether it be soccer pants, balls, gloves, bats, we have whatever you need.
Yeah. So as a child,
affordable price.
So even as a child, Mark Caudle got his size 12 plus
13.
Whatever shoe. All right, well, Mark, I think it's important to kind of end on the note that as we're welcoming families to continue to stay geared up in their favorite sports categories, safety is a huge concern at Omega Sports, and we want to keep people safe. So talk about what you're doing. As a market leader, you have several stores underneath you in the Triad that you work with, and of course you serve on the leader team across all of North Carolina. What are we doing to keep families safe?
Sure, we're following the CDC 6 feet as best we can. We're doing the safety measures as everyone is. At point of purchases, we're wiping down everything we can, cleaning the dressing rooms, just following all the protocols as best we can.
Yeah, we're staying masked up.
Masked up at all times. So we ensure you a safe visit every time you come to each store in the state. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also say that, when there are so many choices out there to buy sporting goods, we are a smaller, more boutique style sporting goods company with a lot to offer. But more importantly, we have really enthusiastic experts that know sports well. They've played them. We have a lot of soccer folks. I know you yourself had a career in soccer that really kind of has continued to help us be dominant in that sport. But we really do have enthusiastic experts.
Sure. We like to hire people with a background, like you said, with experts. We don't, and we train once they get on the sales floor, but we like to hire people with a background, with some knowledge of what we're selling. I think that gives us a head start for sure.
Well, great. Well, it's important to remind people that anything that they're buying, if you're a family and you've got kids that are out there getting ready for team sports, or they're just staying trained up, we've got our fast rewards that are really important that you can only get out of Mega Sports. So you save $5, or you'll get $5 rewards on every 50 that you spend. So your money really does go further out of Mega Sports. And I think that's a huge benefit for families.
Certainly. And we got a great sale going on this weekend, so we'd love to see you.
Great. Well, we thank you for spending the morning with us, Mark.
Thank you.
It's been great. I see the glasses have come off. So we're trying to make sure that we're very comfortable on this interview.
Always comfortable, Dale. You know that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you're sweating a little too much, so we're going to jump off your interview right now. All right. You have a great day, sir.
Thank you, buddy.
All right. Well, we always have a good time with Mark Caudle. He is fantastic. He's a great regional leader and kind of part of our leadership across North Carolina. He's a great member to take his experience both as an athlete to his years at Mega Sports, and then of course being in that buying position, making sure that families get the right gear at all different price points is very important to us. So we appreciate him spending the morning with us. I want to go ahead and jump into, before we go into our Ask Me Anything, I want to quickly jump into my shared screen so I could share with you my Instafaves. And I've got a special Instafave for you guys today that I've been teasing out for a while. Can I get my screen up real quick? Let's see if I can do this. All right, well, so we wanted to quickly just acknowledge that Dr. Sankey has definitely been putting some great content up on his Instagram page. So I want to encourage you guys to continue to keep following it. He's got some quicker, shorter videos that are available on his Instagram page that I definitely want you guys to check out. Everything from active hip mobility, if you're dealing with some type of neck pain, if you've got some slouching issues, just some quick, easy Instagram videos to quickly show you a great stretch or a great movement that can help with that. So definitely check out Dr. Sankey with True Motion Therapy. You can follow him at True Motion Therapy. That's at True Motion Therapy. And of course, you can go to his website, truemotiontherapy.com. So that's my Instafave. I just wanted to make sure, because we don't have a video for Dr. Sankey today, but he's got plenty of videos on his Instagram page. But really, my Instafave today is an interview. I'm going to go ahead and take my screen off here. Is an interview that I did with John Carricker. He is a firefighter in Charlotte who we've been watching on Instagram for quite some time now. He is a running enthusiast. You see him at all the run clubs in Charlotte. You see him at all the races. He is definitely someone that we have enjoyed interacting with on Instagram. And today I wanted to share his journey in running with you guys. And I also wanted to let you know that we are going to play, because we did a pretty long interview with him. We're going to play a little bit of the interview, and then we're going to actually debut the rest of the full interview on our Instagram page, where John, I'm sure all of our Charlotte fans will love, because he's going to, in the video, talk about his favorite brand and his review of a new shoe that just hit a Mega Sport. So let's watch John's story, and then we'll talk a little bit more about where you can see the rest of the video. All right, guys. Well, I'm excited to have on our Saturday Mega Wellness Show John Carricker from our Charlotte market. If you guys have been following our show, you know he has been an Insta-fave. John, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing excellent.
So I can hear right now the roars from Charlotte, just roaring out and happy to see you on screen, because they've been following you, John. You've got a great following on Instagram. You are obviously putting in those miles, and you are sharing abundantly to all the runners in your community.
It's amazing. Both my followers are awesome cheerleaders. I'm lucky to be a part of quite a few running clubs, actually 6 in Charlotte, and they're my best cheerleaders out there for sure.
Yeah. So for folks, real quick, I want to go ahead and put up your handle. It's J4CLT. Now you're in Charlotte. You mentioned the running clubs. You're ambassador for a few of them. Go ahead and give them quick shout outs here because I know they're going to be watching.
Awesome. Yes. Me and actually another ambassador for Omega Sports, Deanna, we both co-lead the Pizza Pill Matthews Run Club in Matthews on Monday nights at 6:30. I also run at Fontaflora on Tuesdays, Pizza Pill Cotswold on Thursdays, Valentine Running Club on Thursdays, and Sundays, Flying Biscuit and No Dot Run Clubs.
Well, so John, we don't want to make people feeling bad because they're just not as booked out as you are in running club. But tell me why the running community in Charlotte is so, vibrant right now and that you're a part of so many activities.
I wanted to learn more. I used to be a big-time cyclist, and when I had my son, when he was born, it was very hard to watch my son and cycle. So I started becoming a runner at that point, more so, and I got back into it seriously about a year ago, and I had only run 5Ks up to a year ago as far as racing. I'd run further distances on my daily runs, but I wanted to up my game, so to speak. Starting to get a little older in life, and I want to knock out some goals. And the community has been there for me, and they've had my back, every single one of them.
Yeah, John, I feel like we've been following your journey from when you kind of started with a couple of run clubs, and then you just became like the run club guy at all of these different events. So, John, I think people need to know you have a pretty packed schedule. So you are a firefighter by profession, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I do work for the Charlotte Fire Department. I just last week passed my 23rd year with them.
Wow, congratulations.
Yes, I'm blessed to have a work schedule that I love. I work 24-hour shifts, and I generally work 3 of those on my normal schedule, and I try to pick up 1 or 2 on overtime. But the good thing is when I have days off, I'm off for 24 hours, which allows me to join the run clubs.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you're serving the Charlotte community. We want to thank you for that. You've been recently putting some numbers up. So tell us your numbers. Tell us like how many miles you've been running, because I think people are going to be curious to know kind of how real dedicated you are to this passion that you have.
For sure. The past few months, full disclosure, my monthly mileage has been a little bit on the downside. My work's been very busy, as we've seen. We've had a lot of current events that have kept me busy there, which I'm thankful for. But I'm usually this month was for the month of August was 111 miles. My highest monthly mileage ever for running is 187. Generally, I would say I'm probably in the 120, 130 mile average if I had to guess right offhand.
Well, with running, first of all, there's a lot of people going, wow, that's amazing. So I want to definitely pause on the amazing fact that you're running hundreds of miles a month. Because that's just not an easy thing to do. That takes true dedication and true skill and passion. But really, when you're running that many miles, keeping up with the right footwear is going to be really important.
100% agree. And that's where y'all as Omega has actually helped me. I was in the wrong shoe up to the beginning of this year. And like I said earlier, I've only been seriously running this past year. My first 100-mile month was actually August of last year. So it's been from that point on that my growth with the run clubs and local race scene has really taken off. But thanks to old Albert there at the foot scanning machine at the Mega on the Arboretum, they scanned my foot, and Rashawn there told me out flat out, says, "I'm sorry, but you're in the wrong shoe." And so she hooked me up with told me I need to be in the Brooks Glycerins or the Ghost, and comfort level is extreme. I have no pain at all, especially as you can tell, I'm not exactly young. So at my age, being able to knock out these miles pain-free is awesome.
Well, I want to just note that I always nod while people are talking, but when you said that last statement, not obviously young, I stopped nodding because I'm not going to make that sentence. But what you just said, John, is really important because that's what's really great about Omega is that you go into Omega Sports, you can get scanned for free. You referenced our Albert Atrix system, which just basically you just stepped in. One of our active play experts, shout out to Rashawn over there in Arboretum, was able to literally just scan your foot really quickly. There's, I think, hundreds of micro laser, cameras that are taking scans of your foot. It allows our expert to actually get the recommendations so that they can say, based on the goals and the mileage that you have and the fact that you've been running now for a few years, she's able to confidently tell you, John, I think I think in your case, you need to be in more of a neutral shoe, correct?
Correct. And Rashawn also brought up a good point. I used to run in stability shoe, which there's obviously nothing wrong with, you running what's great for your foot. But she says also, with the mileage increase that I've had in the past year, I even had a weight loss due to a diet change. We change our running style sometimes with both age and those other two factors. So even if you've been running a particular type of shoe for years, and like you said, it's free. So why not go in there and get scanned? Just double check if nothing else. Being a slight little geek, I guess I can say, I was very impressed with that machine, and it would even email your results to you. And super impressed. I learned a lot, and like I said, I'm running in more comfort than I ever have been.
Thank John from Charlotte for doing an interview. Again, I do want to let you know at 1 o'clock today, we're going to actually release the full interview on our Instagram page. So all of his fantastic followers on Instagram will be able to see his full interview. He will be talking about Brooks, which is his favorite brand. He is part of the Run Happy team there. And he's going to give us his personal opinion on the new Ghost 13. You guys cannot... I'm telling you right now, when you hear the amount of miles he put in on his Ghost 12 and how the Ghost 13 has made a huge difference for him, definitely check that out. By 1 o'clock, we're going to have that on our Instagram page, and that is at Omega Sports NC, which is our Instagram page. All you have to do is just go there, and we'll have that video. It'll be in our Insta stories. So it's about a 14-minute video that we wanted to make sure that we played for you guys. And again, really important Brooks fan, and the fact that he's got some great feedback on the new Ghost 13, which is now in stores and online at omegasports.com. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Ghost 13 is a very popular. The Ghost model from Brooks has been very popular for us. So the 13 has done very well. So if you haven't gotten your 13 yet, definitely make sure that you do, because they are moving fast. All right. Well, Dr. Waterman's been waiting in our waiting room here, waiting to answer your questions that you have, that we have called our Ask Me Anything segment, which is really an Ask a Doc series from Wake Forest Baptist Health. Before I do, I want to give him a proper intro with a little bit of his story from Wake Forest Baptist Health.
My name is Brian Waterman. I'm an orthopedic surgeon at Wake Forest Baptist Health. So I'm an orthopedic sports medicine surgeon focused predominantly on shoulder, knee, and elbow conditions. Mostly of the complex variety, but also the more simple and straightforward sports procedures as well. Orthopedics is really a tangible field where you can restore somebody to function in relatively quick fashion. I think the effects of which we feel and see on a regular basis, and that was one of the things that drew me to orthopedics. When you come to a physician, you need to feel an element of comfort with them, and my philosophy is really to approach them as a member of my family or as a friend. I think that is a critical component. I really value the fact that they've trusted me with their care. So treating them as I would a member of my family is probably the most guiding principle. In terms of other things, I really want to focus on a shared decision-making model. So really giving them the options, the ability to interact, ask questions, and get a true feel for what the available treatments are. Because there's no one right answer. There's probably just the right answer for that patient based on their demands and what they're looking to return to. As somebody that's been a patient myself on multiple occasions, I think that really led to a huge paradigm shift in the way that I approach patient care. I think we have an incredible capacity for performing cutting-edge research and providing pretty much the highest standard of care for orthopedic surgery and sports medicine.
All right. Well, I want to welcome back Dr. Waterman. Thanks for hanging out while we're doing the Mega News and Insta Faves. I appreciate it. We got to know you earlier in the segment, in the show, and now we're going to jump into some Ask Me Anything questions that some of our viewers sent in. Are you ready?
No holds barred. Let's get going.
There you go. I have to say, though, watching the video and just kind of interacting with you, calm and cool. And I think that is what you need when you're talking to any surgeon, just a calm and cool surgeon.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into some questions here. So Kim from Raleigh, this is going to be our first question. She says her mother recently had a heart attack and is on new medications. It looks like she may be due for a knee replacement. Is that still an option? What are some factors that you have to weigh out when someone is just recently going through a traumatic event like that?
Yeah, yeah. And so, as a sports medicine provider, people always think that I just take care of, 16 to 20-year-olds and that's it. But very often we're taking care of athletes and people that are continuing trying to maintain a high level of function. And some of them have healthcare events. These can include strokes, blood clots, heart attacks. And so one of the biggest things that we consider when evaluating these folks for any interventions is the safety of an intervention. Obviously, we all know somebody that's had a knee or hip replacement or an upper extremity replacement, and assessing that safety is probably the most critical things. As a part of a healthcare team, we're often engaging our anesthesia doctors as well as our primary care or medical providers in order to assess that safety. Generally speaking, if somebody's sustained a heart attack, they may have an intervention or a stent or be on blood thinners. And so that can put you at higher risk for bleeding-related complications or maybe in a more profound way, recurrence of that heart or lung problem. And so you want to really make sure that they are up to the task of enduring that stress. And so generally speaking, ballpark numbers, and we've looked at risk calculators, there's usually a window of about 3 to 6 months after a big event like that where you want to really just surveil the patient, monitor them over time, and make sure that they're not having any exacerbation before going forward with it. It's not uncommon in those folks that are undergoing a knee replacement. So having that broad discussion with all your different involved healthcare providers to make sure it's safe, because we know it's a safe procedure, we know it's a very reliable one, particularly for those folks that have pretty advanced osteoarthritis in the knee.
Yeah, I think that's important. I loved what you said, how you have to work with all your medical providers, because obviously some providers may be focusing on just one aspect of your health, but surely someone who maybe needs a knee replacement is probably dealing with some level of pain and discomfort that they're hoping to get relieved, but then they've had this other event. So really kind of working and weighing out all the risk factors is going to be very important, especially if you're a child of someone who is dealing with that.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22, right? Because folks have limits in their function because their knee hurts and they can't get to a more improved health state because they can't be active. And so it's this circular logic that prevents them. So trying to find that right window when it's appropriate. And yeah, it takes a village to take care of some of our more complex or straightforward patients. And we're not afraid to ask for help where needed.
Yeah. Well, I also like that you said, the procedure in general is safe. But obviously everyone's individual health needs to be evaluated and you have to weigh out those risk factors. But the procedure itself is generally safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very low rate of complications when appropriately indicated. The survivorship of these knee, hip, and I do a lot of shoulder replacements. The survivorship, meaning avoidance of repeat surgery, avoidance of complications, is really upwards of 90 to 95% at long-term follow-up, 15, 20 years. So we're seeing really increasing endurance of these implants. Some of the hip implants are even lasting up to 30 years with the new bearing surfaces. So that's pretty exciting to see how engineering and the science side is contributing back to better benefits for our patients.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's jump. Speaking of shoulders, so Jeff from Greensboro says, can you walk me through a rotator cuff surgery and how long generally is a recovery?
Yeah, if you're looking to win popularity contests, you try not to perform rotator cuff surgery. All kidding aside, it's definitely something that is one of the more longer recovery processes that we see. But what we also know is it's very reproducible. We did 2 of these yesterday in the OR. Typically, it involves a couple small poke holes around the shoulder, filling it with fluid, and then you're using little small instruments that are inserted through there in order to tack that back down to bone. One of the most difficult things we do as an orthopedic surgeon is getting reliable healing between soft tissue and bone. and optimizing your biologic environment is really critical. And then also making sure that you understand the personality of the rotator cuff tear, so that just like when you make the bed in the morning, that you make sure everything lays down flat and has the most low tension and best biologic result. For the recovery process, after that hour-and-a-half time frame where you've done a rotator cuff, a more advanced one, then it goes through pretty much 4 predictable phases. And I usually tell people that you may be in physical therapy anywhere between 3 and 6 months, but you'll continue to see benefits and improvement up to about a year. The first 4 to 6 weeks is typically some period of immobilization. What we're trying to do is, again, allow that rotator cuff to get sticky, to heal down to bone, and that's only with immobilization. So after that, what we're doing is we're starting to work on more active range of motion. Inevitably, people will get stiff with immobilization, and so you're trying to find that happy medium. So that's kind of that second 6-week chunk of time. After about that 10 to 12 week marks, then you're going to start having more stable rotator cuff attachment. You're going to start to enhance some of the strengthening. And so that can be just isometrics, pressing against the wall. That can be doing tension bands. That can be using gym equipment. And so that's something that you can export to your home or use in a formal gym setting. After that third quarter of the recovery process, then it's really piecing it all together and trying to make that transition back to day-to-day life, occupational activity, or recreational athletics. If you're a relatively just normal individual trying to get back to work, you can be back to work relatively quickly, even in a sling. If you're somebody that works on the railroad or is a CrossFitter, then those demands may push that back so that you avoid recurrence of injury. So I usually say somewhere between 6 to 9 months for that recovery process. The nice part is if you do the rehabilitation right, you engage physical therapy and you observe those restrictions, our success rates, in my experience, has been upwards of 90% as well. And that's important because re-tear across the board is one of the biggest concerns.
Right. And obviously this is something that is a serious issue with folks, that if they're dealing with it, that's not something that we want them to kind of delay on, because they could exacerbate it even worse.
Yeah, and as we were talking to earlier, there's a great podcast that we've generated that looks at this specific topic. One of the heralding signs is night pain or discomfort that you experience with overhead activity that doesn't get better over time, or one after an injury has happened. What we know is once a rotator cuff tear becomes symptomatic, generally speaking, it will continue to grow in size. As they grow in size, they can become more complex in nature and very often lead to atrophy of the muscle, which in some cases may be an irreversible process. So having the information to know that you have it and maybe engage in certain treatments is appropriate. Not all that requires surgery. We know that rotator cuff tears are actually very prevalent among our older patient population, maybe upwards of 40% in folks entering into their 70s. So these can very often be managed with injections, with physical therapy, or with avoidance of certain activities, with surgery potentially required if it fails to improve.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought up your podcast. I know that you've been a guest on a couple of great podcasts, and there's some great content that you put out there. So quickly, just if folks are watching, just Google, Dr. Brian Waterman at Wake Forest Baptist Health, and I know the Best Health podcasts will start showing up. I know I was able to listen to some, and then there's some great videos that you've put out there as well. So you're sharing this great info with a lot of folks.
Yeah, a lot of people have tangible questions, just like the ones you're mentioning. And what we're trying to do is just reach that patient directly so that they can have their questions answered. How am I going to sleep after a rotator cuff surgery? How much should I have pain? Is this normal? And so if you're able to give them that reassurance, then that allows them to more confidently attack their rehab and their recovery process with or without surgery.
Yep. All right. Well, good. Thank you for that answer. So Jenny from Cary says, I like this question. She says, at what age is joint replacement surgery not an option? Does it depend on what the joint is?
Not necessarily. I think it really depends on, we have these two concepts. One is chronologic age and one is physiologic age. I'm sure all of us have seen individuals that are in their 50s and 60s and they look like they could be in their 20s. And there's folks that are the opposite.
I
So
think Carla is in that category, our CEO.
yeah,
In case he's
yeah.
watching.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you guys are purveyors of good health, so it's not surprising that Omega Sports would have kind of the fountain of youth at its disposal.
Oh,
But I
that's
think
all the time.
you gotta think about the patient's physiologic health. And very often you can see folks that are continuing to maintain active lifestyles up until about their 70s and 80s. So I really tried to dispel any of this ageism that is often peddled in our medical community, and just try to meet people where they are. Obviously, talk about the risks and benefits of the procedure. But for instance, we do shoulder replacements all the way up into the 70s and 80s. And patients are able to return to golfing activities, to gardening, to hanging out with their grandkids. So I don't put a firm limit on it, but everybody's a little bit different in how they approach it, and their risk changes too, depending on their medical history.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump into our comments here because it looks like we've got another comment from Adam, who would love to know what expertise does Wake Forest Baptist Health have in baseball injuries. Obviously, you are overseeing the teams there over at Wake Forest. So, what expertise would you like to share?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Adam. When it comes to the care of the throwing athlete, the overhead throwing athlete, which is not just exclusive to baseball, it's softball, it's javelin, it's track and field. It really calls on a lot of different athletes, volleyball. We have increasingly trying to look at ways of injury prevention in these athletes. We've been fortunate to unveil our Wake Forest pitching lab, which is co-located at the site of Wake Forest baseball. And what that is that's a motion capture throwing facility where my colleague and the director of the lab, Kristen Nicholson, who's a PhD in throwing biomechanics, is taking athletes in and helping us to evaluate that individual in a more holistic way. So it's getting individuals all the way up through travel baseball and youth baseball, all the way up to the professional ranks, where we have over 10 Major League Baseball organizations that have collaborated with us to evaluate their athletes. I see individuals predominantly as it relates to throwing related injuries, be they overuse or traumatic. But then we're also utilizing our strength and conditioning coaches, our athletic trainers, and our physical therapist in order to provide that comprehensive care to the baseball athlete. And that's not just me, it's really my partners. Everybody in both hand and upper extremity, as well as in sports medicine, has a subspecialty focus within the throwing athlete. And so that's really something we pride ourselves on at Wake Forest.
Yeah, I love that. I hear you saying that there's you guys are not only just doing the reactive side of things, which is treating injury, but you're actually being more proactive, working with athletes to help them just move better and make sure that they're not getting those injuries. I think the fact that Wake Forest Baptist Health is investing in the technology and the expertise and creating things like the pitching lab, I think is hugely beneficial for obviously the team, but also just kind of upping your own expertise, because you get to really see folks that use that shoulder and that arm on a normal basis, so that you can take the extreme athlete and help them to someone who just needs to be able to put their dishes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the lab has really been an incredible resource. It's really a fortunate thing that we have such a supportive administration, from my chairman, Andy Coman, to Coach Tom Walter with Wake Forest Baseball, to really Wake Forest University in large, that has supported this endeavor. We have the top notch equipment that's available, with both marker and now markerless systems for analyzing the throwing motion. And so that, to dovetail in with what we talked about earlier, also helps us with the research side of the house to see how we can prevent these throwing-related injuries, such as a UCL injury or a Tommy John surgery in somebody that's exceedingly young. There's a pandemic of throwing-related injuries, and so we're really trying to get to the heart of that, not just as it relates to the science, but really getting in and rolling up our sleeves for our community and seeing how we could improve their overall health and head off injury.
Yeah, well, again, I want to thank you for Adam, I want to thank you for your question, and Dr. Waterman for explaining kind of more of what kind of injuries you treat with baseball players. I think we would love to be able to come to the pitching lab and to kind of showcase that for everyone, bring some local athletes in, or work with folks that you're already working with to kind of show the expertise and kind of the commitment that you guys have to the proactiveness of helping folks with sports medicine. All right, let's jump into another question. So we've got a question from Mark from Charlotte. Says, does an Achilles tear require surgery, or are there other options?
Yeah, Mark, great question. And this is a debate that gets reinvigorated probably once every 5 years or so. And let me just say that there's no consensus on how Achilles tears should be managed. It's the largest and most powerful tendon in our body, and it's very relevant to a lot of different functions, not just day-to-day life, but athletic function too. Not surprisingly, it's actually one of the more serious injuries to come back from. Everybody recalls Kevin Durant and his injury with a very kind of unique onset and how that was managed. But suffice to say that there's no one right way to treat this. And a lot of it is in the context of the individual patient. So everybody's going to have some unique risks and benefits. As it relates to surgery, generally speaking, surgery when it's entailed can have probably about a 6 to 9 month recovery process to get back to the highest level of physical function. And it probably has a lower risk of re-rupture. And in terms of recovery, it may offer you a little bit of an earlier return to work. On the flip side of that is a functional rehabilitation program, that means non-surgically, is typically one that can avoid some of the surgical complications that we see as folks get older. If you have surgery involving the back part of your heel, that vascularity is not that good, the blood supply. And so that is an area that sometimes can have wound healing complications, irritation related to the surgery site. And, obviously that's something that you may have some subtle compromise in your strength and explosiveness when you bring yourself up onto your toes. So I think engaging in a conversation with your doctor on treatment, if you do have a suspicion of an injury for Achilles injury, getting in sooner is definitely beneficial. Because you really want to get that in an early stage before things have either started to scar in or become a little bit unclear on the diagnosis. But great question.
Yeah, I appreciate your taking time to kind of walk through that. I think it's wonderful and fair to say that there's not a consensus. It's really the individual and the doctor, and kind of exploring different options.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to go through a couple of these a little bit quicker. This is a good one. I think a lot of Omega Sports followers would love to know the answer, or maybe want to avoid the answer to. Susan from Charlotte would like to know, what impact does running really have on your knees?
Yeah, and this is one of those questions where you commonly have to dispel the misinformation.
Okay.
When people think about endurance athletes, oftentimes they think about it as treads on a tire. And they think that with the increased miles that you're going to wear down your Michelins, and then ultimately you're going to end up with end-stage arthritis. What they've actually shown in a variety of different, very elegantly done studies is that impact activity and endurance activity, maintaining a good body habitus, keeping your weight low, keeping your muscles engaged, is actually beneficial across the board, not just in terms of cardiovascular health, but actually the health of your cartilage. What you actually see is there's these concepts where a body responds to stress. And so your cartilage health and your underlying bone actually respond to those repetitive loads by increasing deposition of certain cartilage fragments and the building blocks of that. So what we see is actually runners in general have better knees than the average non-endurance athlete population. Now, you can be subject to overuse injuries, and there are a lot of different other things that come with it, but being intentional about your running program can actually benefit your knees, and that's why we see a lot of the folks that come into our stores that are older individuals but in impeccable health and really with good knees without any problems.
Yeah, I was with your colleague, Dr. Lucy, when our Charlotte chiropractor that we show all the time, Dr. Sankey, made a statement. He said, "Motion is lotion."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was hilarious, but Dr. Lucy was like, "Amen. That's exactly right. Motion is lotion."
Yeah, I'll double down on that. It is.
Yeah. So staying moving, staying active is definitely going to be a benefit to your overall health in general for cardiovascular, but also from just keeping those joints kind of lubricated.
Maintaining full knee extension and good flexibility of your muscle tendon units is also another critical component. And so sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle. There's this whole debate about stretching and not. I do continue to recommend that, but more active stretching, doing more physical functional activities prior to engaging in a run, and make sure you're interspersing in some lower impact exercises to engage your core. What we know is especially, I can speak to the aging male population, when you engage in strengthening activities in your lower extremities, it probably has a synergistic effect with your overall testosterone levels as well as your overall systemic health. So definitely something that you should take into account when designing your exercise program.
Great. All right. Well, we're gonna jump down into Tracy. Tracy has a question. This one's a little bit again specific to probably an Omega Sports customer who's constantly coming into our stores, because we hear about plantar fasciitis a lot. So what are some exercises or treatments for plantar fasciitis? Again, maybe not your absolute core focus in your work, but definitely I think it'd be nice to hear your recommendations. And then if you even have any running socks or shoes that you recommend.
Yeah, so plantar fasciitis is one of those tendinopathies that we see a lot of. It's not classically a tendinopathy, but the attachment of the soft tissue onto the bone of the heel. And so very often heel spurs get maligned as a bad entity. Heel spurs are really not the problem by itself, just more of a reflection of a chronic traction injury at the attachment site. So very often you have some soreness and stiffness. Our feet and our ankles fall into this plantar flex position so that the fascia will tighten. And as you take that first step to get out of bed in the morning, you're stretching that back out. You're breaking up those little calcific deposits. And so it hurts. It creates inflammation. Similarly, as you exercise for more long periods of time, the same thing happens. Probably the most robust thing you can do in your day-to-day regimen is to implement a regular stretching program. So it's trying to break up some of those adhesions. Very often we'll do the big toe, stretching that back, so kind of rocking up onto the ball of your foot and trying to stretch that, utilizing a golf ball or a lacrosse ball or a frozen bottle of water to try to stretch or roll out that plantar fascia is really helpful. For those individuals that it's more recalcitrant, maybe using a nighttime splint to prevent you from rocking into that flex position. One of the other things that I've had experience with playing on the soccer field is that repetitive impact loading hurts in the heel. And so gel foam heel cups off the shelf can be quite helpful. There's also a variety of different insoles that you can trial. And again, much like the theme of the day is, it's not one size fits all. You have to maybe try a handful and see which one works best with you. Some of the shoes that offer either a rocker bottom component to it or more rigid transfer between heel strike and forefoot push off may decrease some of the irritation of plantar fascia. And so I'd encourage folks to come and visit the store and see which works best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Waterman, I'm going to go ahead and end it right there because we're going into an hour here. I appreciate it. We have a couple more questions that we'll make sure that when we create the blog, we'll make sure we still address. But I want to thank you for spending the morning with us. I appreciate your time today. You and your colleagues at Wake Forest Baptist Health have always been great to work with. So we appreciate your expertise and your time and flexibility.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
And
spotlighting
of course,
us.
folks that are interested in anything, getting any kind of questions answered, or if they are dealing with any kind of pain, the number that they definitely want to make sure that you call is 336-716-WAIT. So Dr. Waterman, I want to thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. Stay
All
healthy.
right.
Stay safe.
Looks like we froze on the screen there. So I'm going to go ahead and close the show. Dr. Waterman, are you there? Nope. Okay, we're going to close the show. It looks like we lost a little bit of a signal there. But we do have a couple more questions that we'll make sure that we put out there. We'll probably do some things in the blog so that we can get two of the questions that I skipped over to make sure that we still hit the time. Again, thank you to Dr. Waterman. Thanks to all the folks over at Wake Forest Baptist Health. I want to thank Mark Caudle for joining us today, and then John Carricker from our Charlotte market. I want to thank you guys for joining us. It is Labor Day weekend. Go out and have some fun. Be safe. Remember, you have 25% off in our stores in all of the mega sports in North Carolina. We want to wish you guys a happy Labor Day. Enjoy.